Fear of a modern Prometheus. When someone would ask me who my idol was, my answer would be Mary Shelley. The reason why I absolutely adore Mary Shelley is because she was the writer of Frankenstein, a book about a young Swiss student who discovered the secret of animating lifeless matter and, by assembling body parts, creates a monster. The subtitle of the book, The Modern Prometheus, is often forgotten. It's named after Prometheus, the Greek titan who stole fire and wisdom from the gods, gave it to human beings, but was heavily punished for it. I really like this book. It's one of my favorites, and it's also a great contribution to sci-fi history. But not only do I like this book, but I also find it to be a really good example of how we fear the future. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. In my speech, I'm going to talk about science fiction, but there are many sorts of science fiction. On the one hand, you have utopic science fiction, where the future is all fun, bright, perfect, but on the other hand, you have dystopic science fiction, where the future isn't that perfect. And that's the science fiction I'll be focusing on. In my speech, I'm going to ask myself this question. Should mankind be afraid of a future as described in science fiction? Or could science fiction inspire mankind to avoid such future? So let's get started. Should mankind be afraid of a future as described in science fiction? Science fiction has been influencing our lives for decades now, not only in a cultural way, but also in a scientific way. But some fear that because positive things in science fiction, like space travel, have become reality, that maybe horrible things like Big Brother or Frankenstein's monster could become reality too. And that fear isn't unreasonable. If you just take a look at companies like Facebook or Twitter, you can see that right now they are developing enormous databases of private information that they can use or abuse for whatever they want. Or if you just take a look at cloning technology, you can see that it has developed so much over the past years and it will just keep on doing that. It seems like these things are warning us for that one day when we will wake up in a future as described in Huxley's A Brave New World or 1984 or maybe even Frankenstein's. Maybe we are already living in this world, but just without realizing it. But what if science fiction could inspire us to avoid such future? Because where some people tend to see science fiction as a vision of the future, I think you should see it more as a vision of the present. Because the worlds that science fiction writers often describe are exaggerations of the ones they live in at that moment, and they serve more as a warning of what could happen if we keep behaving this way than as an actual prediction of the future. So I think that horrible scenarios like, let's say, Frankenstein's, are the things that keep us from letting things escalate. And that's why I don't see our future actually becoming like science fiction. We have people all around the world working on a better future, thinking about solutions for the downsides of our progress, thinking about solutions for global warming, pandemic disasters, and so on. Because of scientific progress, we never have actually lived in a better world than we do today. So I don't think we should be afraid of it. In the beginning of my speech, I said that Frankenstein is a good example of how we fear the future, but maybe it can also be seen as an example of how dystopic science fiction can inspire us to avoid such future. Because I think that Mary Shelley first seems like she tries to warn us for scientific progress, while I think she's warning us for letting science get out of control. Society was just not ready for Frankenstein's creation, so the people rejected it, with the consequence that the creation turned wrathful, tried to take revenge on Frankenstein, and punished him, just like Prometheus was punished in the end. But we should not be afraid of being a modern Prometheus. And by that I mean we should not be afraid of doing something new or riskful. But when we do, we should take our time. And we should also always keep the consequences in mind. So my summary is that dystopic science fiction might at first sight seem bad, just because it brings fear among its public, but I do believe that it makes us aware of the problems we are facing right now. It makes us think of solutions, makes us build on a better future. And that's why we shouldn't fear a modern Prometheus. Thank you.
Thank you for your speech. Do we need science fiction to tell us what to fear, what not to do? Are these not things we could think of ourselves?
I don't think we necessarily need science fiction to be made aware of the problems we are facing right now, but I definitely do think that dystopic science fiction can be a way to make us aware, because it's fiction. You can read it as entertainment, but there also lies truth in that entertainment, and because it's entertainment, more people will read it, more people will be interested in it, but also because there's truth in this science fiction, it can make you aware. So I think that science fiction can definitely help, but it's not necessarily necessary. Okay, thank you.
Why aren't sci-fi authors considered 100% good or appreciated?
I think because science fiction is sometimes seen as sort of cult genre, because you have all this. Science fiction has sort of a reputation. You have things like Scientology and stuff that make science fiction really unbelievable. You think it's all about people. Sometimes you think of science fiction like, oh yeah, there's people who believe in aliens and think the world is going to end and the apocalypse and stuff. But yes, so maybe that can serve. That is one of the reasons why people don't take science fiction seriously. Maybe also because of there are a lot of bad science fiction movies from the past. That's maybe also a reason why people don't take science fiction seriously. But I definitely do think that it can be seen, that some science fiction can be seen as a form of literature. So.
So would you say then that literature actually protects our society?
Okay, sorry, it's a good question, but I need to think for it. So that literature protects our society from what exactly? Or that's a question.
From a dystopian future, maybe?
Yes, in some way, because dystopic science fiction makes us aware of dystopian futures. It makes us think like, oh, what if these things could actually happen? So yeah, we will be a little bit scared of it, but we also will be conscious about it, and we will try to avoid that. So in that way, it tries to protect us. But, so yeah. Thank you.
How can we keep technological development under control?
How we can keep it under control? I think right now, by making people aware that it has a lot of downsides. You see all these speeches about technology getting out of control, about people being too dependent on technology. I think that these speeches are definitely a way to help people being aware of that problem. You see people all around the world are thinking about that, and I think that is definitely a good way to avoid us being too dependent on technology. Thank you.
Will we realize in time that science is out of control?
I'm not sure about that. I think we can never be sure. Maybe right now it's too late. I don't know. But I think that right now, thinking about it, we are thinking about solutions for global warming, about solutions for diseases, medicines and stuff. So I definitely think that I don't think it's too late. I think it can be solved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mertens.